All right, strap yourselves in because today we are diving headfirst into the deep end of philosophy.
Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. We're talking Plato's Republic, the book that's been like fueling debates for centuries.
Yeah, this one's a classic for sure.
Centuries. We're talking justice, power, the whole shebang.
It's amazing how relevant it still is today, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Like, what does an ideal society even look like?
Right. It really makes you think about government, society, just life even means. It's still impacting us.
And to make this deep dive even more interesting, we're bringing in some big names to like hash it out.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Socrates, Plato's own teacher,
Yeah.
the OG of asking all the right questions,
And then we've got Joe Rogan, our modern day philosopher. I mean, the guy's always curious.
always down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. Always exploring those unconventional ideas.
And then we can't forget Kanye,
Oh, this work is wild.
the man who said, "I am a god."
You know he's going to want that philosopher king title.
Oh, 100%. And just to stir the pot even more, we've got Nietzsche.
The ultimate Plato critic.
Right. He thought chasing a perfect world just made you weak.
He was all about embracing reality, the good, the bad, the ugly.
All right, are you ready for this philosophical showdown?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay, round one. The first big question, right out the gate. Did Plato create a utopia or a dystopia?
That is the question, isn't it? A perfect society or a world gone wrong?
Scholars are still debating this today.
And for good reason.
And to make things even more interesting, Plato throws in this thing called the noble lie.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's this myth like rulers create it to keep everyone in line.
Keep the harmony.
Yeah, like, is that genius or just straight up manipulation?
It really highlights this tension in Plato's thinking, you know?
What do you mean?
He's all about truth and reason, right? But then he's also like, maybe a little lie is okay if it keeps things running smooth.
Huh. So is this noble lie something we see today too?
Oh, I think so. Think about the stories we're told about the economy, politics, even our own dreams.
That's a good point. Like, who benefits from these stories?
Exactly. Are they for the common good or are they just like propping up those in power?
Deep stuff.
Mm.
Okay, let's bring Kanye into the ring here. Is he really philosopher king material?
Well, according to Plato, there are three things a philosopher king needs: wisdom, justice, and understanding of the forms,
To form.
those eternal, unchanging essences beyond our world.
Okay, so let's measure Kanye against that. Wisdom, he's creative, sure, but is that philosophical wisdom?
Tough to say.
What about justice? He's spoken out about issues, but his actions don't always match his words.
That's true.
And understanding the forms. Maybe that's where the I am a god thing comes in.
Could be. I mean, it's fun to analyze Kanye through Plato's lens, right?
Totally. It might even reveal something about our own ideas of leadership.
Exactly. What do we really value in a leader?
Okay, enough about Kanye. Let's tap into our inner Joe Rogan here.
Always a good time.
The guy's fixated on Plato's allegory of the cave. You know the one.
Oh, yeah. The people chained up, mistaking shadows for reality.
Joe's wondering if it's a metaphor for social media today.
Whoa.
Are we all staring at shadows on the wall?
It makes you think, right? Algorithms curate our feeds, show us what they think we want.
Yeah, and we end up in these echo chambers with a totally warped view of the world.
Which is exactly what Plato was getting at with the cave.
So what's the way out?
He thought education was key. Not just knowledge, but critical thinking, developing that wisdom.
Like questioning everything.
Exactly. Challenging our own assumptions and striving for a deeper understanding of reality.
I like it. Okay, time for Nietzsche to drop some truth bombs here. The guy had major issues with Plato's whole ideal world thing.
Yeah, he thought it was a form of denial.
Denying what?
Life.
Yeah.
The messy, chaotic reality of it all.
Huh. Why?
He thought real strength came from embracing your will to power, overcoming challenges, making your own meaning.
So it's Plato the idealist versus Nietzsche the pragmatist.
In a nutshell, yeah.
That's a lot to process.
It is. It forces us to really think about what matters.
Yeah.
Striving for a perfect world or embracing the imperfections of this one.
No easy answers there.
Nope. But that's what's so great about these philosophers. They give us the framework to tackle these big questions.
I'm feeling philosophically exhausted.
That means it's working.
Haha, fair enough. So what's next in this philosophical cage match?
Well, we've only just scratched the surface of the Republic.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. We still need to unpack all those juicy details.
Bring it on.
This whole noble lie thing gets even trickier when you bring in Nietzsche's perspective.
Oh, how so?
Well, Nietzsche wouldn't see it just as social control. He'd say it's about suppressing individual will, like that drive to face reality head on.
So we've got Plato maybe saying deception's okay for the greater good, and Nietzsche saying that weakens the individual. That's a tough one.
It is. It's like they're both wrestling with these huge dilemmas that we still haven't figured out, you know?
What do you mean?
Like, how much individual freedom can you have before it messes up society? Is there even such a thing as objective truth, or is it all just like different points of view?
Man, those are some big questions.
Okay.
Let's focus in on one specific idea from the Republic that always gets people talking. The philosopher king.
Ah, yes, Plato's ideal ruler. Someone with both political power and serious philosophical wisdom.
So not just a politician, but a deep thinker too.
Exactly. Someone who understands justice, the forms, the good, and leads with all that knowledge.
Sounds like a unicorn, honestly, finding a leader like that.
It's a tall order, for sure. But Plato thought it was crucial for a just and harmonious society.
Like, only someone who truly gets truth and goodness can guide everyone else towards virtue.
That was his thinking.
Okay, so if we were casting a modern-day philosopher king, who would even come close?
I mean, there are people with brains and leadership skills, but would Plato agree? It's hard to say.
But it's some fun thought experiment, right?
Totally. It makes us think about what we want in a leader, what a philosopher king-led world would actually look like.
Okay, let's bring Socrates back into this. What would he say about all this?
Oh, Socrates would be all over this with his questions and his wit. I bet he'd be poking holes in some of Plato's ideas.
Like what?
Like, is it really just to lie to people, even if it's for a noble reason? Or can we ever truly know these forms, or are they just, like, impossible ideals?
Classic Socrates. The master of humility, never claiming to know everything.
But always pushing for the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it gets.
This deep dive is making my brain hurt in a good way.
That's how you know it's working.
Okay, back to Joe Rogan for a sec. We talked about the caves and the social media, but that metaphor feels like it applies to so much more, doesn't it?
For sure. The cave is any situation where you only see a limited part of reality.
It could be the news, our culture, even our own biases. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, how do we climb out of those caves and see the full picture?
Well, how do we?
Plato would say education is the key. But not just facts. It's about critical thinking, challenging yourself, getting to that deeper understanding of truth.
It sounds like a never-ending process.
It is. But it's worth it. Being able to think for yourself, seeing past the surface, living a good life, it's all part of it.
All right, last chance for Nietzsche to go head-to-head with Plato. What are his biggest critiques of the Republic?
Nietzsche saw this idealism as like a rejection of life itself.
What do you mean?
By focusing on these perfect forms, he'd say Plato ignored the messy, unpredictable parts of being human. The good and the bad.
So Nietzsche was saying embrace the chaos instead of trying to escape into a perfect world.
Exactly. He thought true strength came from that struggle, from making your own meaning in a world where there isn't any inherent purpose.
So in the end, it's a clash of values, right?
I think so. Plato valuing truth, reason, the good life, and Nietzsche valuing individuality, strength, that will to power.
It's like they're both right in their own way.
And it's not about picking sides. It's about understanding how these different perspectives shape our own views on life, on morality, on what it means to be human.
Man, this is intense.
That's philosophy for you. It's supposed to make you think, challenge you, make you question everything.
All this talk about Plato's caves has me thinking about truth itself, Like, if we're all stuck in our own little caves, can we ever really know what's objectively true?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Plato thought objective truth was out there, in the forms, but Nietzsche thought it was always subjective, tied to our own perspectives.
We could go down that rabbit hole all day, but we're running out of time for this deep dive.
True.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, let's get some final thoughts from our other guests. What about Socrates? You've been awfully quiet during this debate. What's your take on all this talk about truth, power, and the perfect society? Oh, you know Socrates. Who wouldn't give you a straight answer? He'd probably hit you with more questions.
Like what?
Like, what does a just society even mean anyway? Or is this philosopher king thing even possible? Or is it just a nice idea? And is this will to power good or bad? Or, both?
That's Socrates for you. Always making us think. Okay, Joe Rogan, what are your final thoughts on all this?
Joe. He's all about consciousness, reality, that kind of stuff. He might say Plato's cave is about the limits of what we can even know.
Like, are we all just trapped in our own heads with our own versions of reality?
Exactly. And if so, what does that mean for truth? For meaning?
Mind-blowing stuff. Okay, Kanye, you've been pretty quiet during this philosophical throwdown. Any last words of wisdom?
Kanye. I bet he'd say he's beyond Plato, and Nietzsche found some higher truth through his music, his spirituality.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Yeah.
Our philosophical cage match is officially over. Plato, Nietzsche, Socrates, Joe Rogan, Kanye, all those big ideas swirling around.
It's kind of crazy how a book from, like, thousands of years ago can still get us this fired up.
I know, right? It shows that these questions about justice, truth, the ideal society, they never really go away.
And don't forget Nietzsche's side of the story. He'd say, forget the perfect world. Embrace the chaos, the real stuff.
So where do you stand? Team Plato or Team Nietzsche?
Or maybe a bit of both.
Think about it this way. You're living in your own version of Plato's cave every day.
Surrounded by information, opinions, all that.
How do you know what's real? What matters? What are you going to live by?
That's where philosophy helps us out. Plato, Nietzsche, they don't have all the answers, but they show us how to ask the right questions.
So are you just looking at shadows on the wall? Or are you trying to see something more?
Are you okay with the noble lie? Or are you going to fight for what's true, even if it's hard?
That's the challenge we're leaving you with today.
We hope this deep dive has shown you how powerful philosophy can be. It's not just about old books. It's about understanding yourself, the world, the choices you make.
Thanks for joining us on this crazy philosophical ride.
And remember, if you could build your own republic, what would it be? A perfect utopia, or something real with all the messiness that comes with it.
The choice is yours. Thanks for listening.